I want to talk to you today about hardships, bad times, things that we go through. We all go through them. Sometimes we have really good things that happen, and other times we have those devastating moments that we'll carry for the rest of our life. But we have to get through them, and we have to figure out how are we going to get through these. I want to talk to you about a time that for me was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it wasn't me really doing it, it was God that got me through because there was no other way I could get through this. And that was when I started becoming not just my mom's best friend, not just my mom's daughter, but now my mom's caretaker. My mom was like everything. She was my best buddy. She helped me sew. She was my partner in crime. If she bought her something, she bought me something. We were always together. And sometimes we would even show up in the same place with the same outfit on because she had bought us, me one and her one. So we would show up dressed alike a lot of times. And I didn't care because my mother was amazing. I loved her. But she had been diagnosed with throat cancer. And that throat cancer was so bad that they had to take out her voice box. So she had a trach. And really, hardly anybody could understand her talking but me because I think we shared a brain. And so I could understand what she was saying, maybe because I knew what she was thinking a lot of the time. And mom one day called me. I was at home. I'd had to have foot surgery. I was sitting in the recliner and she called me and she says, "Hey, Verona, I have a hole in my throat." And I'm like, "Of course you do. You have a trach. You have a hole in your throat." And she's like, "No, I have a new hole in my throat." Well, we had just been to the doctor the week before and they had told us that she was almost 5 years and that they didn't see anything. But on the way home, she was saying, "It's not right. There is something there. I can feel it. I know that there's something there." And she just knew that there was something. I'm like, "No, mom, it's not. It's just you probably feel like that because you've had it before and you've had this battle going on and on. And it's probably not anything there." And she assured me that she felt like that something was there. And she was right. A lot of times we know things better than anybody else does because we know our bodies. So this day, she calls me, she tells me she's going to put a Band-Aid on her throat and go to work. And I'm like, "No, you're not. You need to come and see me because, I can fix it, of course." And she's like, "No, I'm just going to put a Band-Aid and go to work." And I'm like, "Mom, you really just need to come and let me see it before you go to work." So she did. She showed up at my house, and sure enough, she had a new hole in her throat. And we took her to the doctor, and the doctor confirmed that her cancer was back, and at this time it wasn't good. It didn't look treatable. It didn't look like she was going to make it. And that was very devastating for me because I'd already lost my dad several years before. I have two little boys, and they did not get to know my dad, and they didn't get to know what an amazing daddy he was. And so I was very devastated. Not only was I looking at like I was going to lose my best friend, my mom, my companion that I did everything with, but my little boys wasn't going to get to grow up knowing this amazing woman. That's what I kept thinking. And, of course, the devil, he attacked me and he played on that and he would tell me all kinds of crazy stuff to a point that I got to a point that I felt like I'm not going to be able to do this. I can't do this. I cannot lose my mom. And so I started praying and I started trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Well, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to do everything we can. Everything. We're going to go wherever we can, do whatever we can do. And then whatever happens, it's up to God. So that's exactly what we did. We borrowed a van. We went to Houston, Texas. We got their second opinion to find out. They gave us this treatment plan and we started chemo, which my mom did not want to do. We started chemo and she got very sick. So my husband, who I cannot even begin to tell you what an amazing man he is, how he's just God sent. He said, I tried to get my mom to move in with me and she wouldn't do it. She wanted to be home. And he told me, he said, "You go and take care of your mom. And when it's all said and done, I'll be here." And so that's exactly what I did. I had the privilege of homeschooling my children. So I loaded them up in the car. We packed a few things and we headed to mom's and we turned one of her bedrooms into a schoolroom where my youngest was about to start kindergarten in the fall. We turned that into a classroom and we just had every day with my mom. My husband, he'd come over and he'd date me. I'd cook supper and he'd come by and stay a little while and we'd sit in the swing and then he'd go home. And but the time I had with my mom was so good in one way. And then the other way, it was the most heartbreaking thing I had ever done. My mother's cancer had this thing where she had a problem with blood. And so she would just be speaking to you, or you trying to talk, or maybe she would cough, and then this blood would just start pouring down. And the problem was that my whole entire life, I have a problem with blood. If I see it, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I would just, but God's mercy and grace is so wonderful that I was able to take care of my mom even during the blood. I was able to take care of her and clean it and do whatever I needed to do, but only because God gave me the strength to do it. I could have never gotten through that time if it hadn't been for God. People say, how did you do it? How was you awake so long? How did you take care of her so long? My mother's favorite thing to do was for me to read the Bible to her while she just laid and closed her eyes and rested. And every night we had to read Psalms 23. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's, yea, as though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that one. And I would read it to her, and she would just lay there, and she'd be so comforted. And not only would she be comforted, but I would too, because I knew that when my mother passed from this world, she was going to be with Jesus, and that she was going to live forever without any kind of blood problem, without any kind of cancer. She was going to be whole and healthy, and she was going to just live forever a happy life. Now, that was all good. I was tickled over that, because what could be better than that? Living forever, healthy, whole, loving Jesus, what could be better? But what was really going to be hard was, how was I going to get through life every day here on earth without my mom? How was I going to wake up in the morning without my mom? How was I going to do all that? Well, one night, Mom started bleeding. She had a problem, like I said, with the blood. She had just took her bath, put on her cute little wig. She had her wigs named. One was Vicky and one was Paula. And she had just put on Paula, who she said was the faithful one that was always good for her. And Vicky was a little fun. So she felt more like Paula that night, and she put Paula on. And she sat down, and she was just watching TV and talking with us, and she coughed. And when she coughed, the blood just started pouring. And I didn't know what else to do. She was about to bleed to death, not only in front of me, but in front of my children and the people that were there visiting us. So I put my hands on my mom, and I remember just calling out to Jesus, just calling out to God to please just stop the blood in Jesus' name. Because he says, if we ask anything in his name, he'll do it. And I that's all I had to go on. That's all I had. And so I just remember putting my hands on her, and I was just praying, God, please just stop the blood. Just stop the blood in Jesus' name. Stop the blood. And then, Lord, if you don't stop the blood, just take her. Just take her right now, God. Don't let her suffer anymore. Just take her right now. Well, the blood stopped immediately. And then my mother, who had these amazing brown eyes, looked up at me with this sweet, sweet look on her face and said, don't you ever pray again that I die. It broke my heart. I realized at that moment I had just prayed that the Lord would take my mom. And she wasn't ready to go. She was ready spiritually, but she wasn't just ready to say, I'm done. She was a fighter. She was a strong fighter. And so I said, Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know, but I can't stand to see you hurting. And she said, please don't ever pray that I die again. I love you. I want to be here. I want to be with your brother and with you and your kids and his kids and my family. I want to be with them. So there was many times back and forth to the hospital, different trips that we had to go on and do. And it became known that Mom wasn't going to make it. She wasn't going to live this happy, full life here on earth. She wasn't going to be able to see all of her grandkids grow up. But she was going to see Jesus. And that was amazing. That was amazing. She was going to get to see him face to face. Her creator, her sustainer. She was going to get to see him. And so the time come, and there was a night, and I was on one side, my brother was on the other, and we had been praying, and Mom had, not spoke or done anything for several days. And I remember putting my hand on her leg, and I remember praying, Lord, if you're not going to heal her here, take her home with you where she can be healed so she won't hurt anymore. And at that moment, I felt my husband put his hand on my shoulder. And I thought, how sweet. So I reached up to touch his hand. And to my amazement, his hand wasn't there. And I looked behind me, and all it was behind me was a wall. Like there was no room for anyone to stand behind me. And I knew at that moment God had sent his beautiful, wonderful angels to come and just comfort me, because I knew it wasn't going to be long, and my mom was going to be with Jesus. So sure enough, it wasn't but a few days later, and me and my brother was standing on either side of her bed, holding her hand, and my mom passed out of this world into the next with a smile on her face. We know that she met Jesus face to face. You know that Psalms 3:23, though she walked through the valley of the shadow of death, just the shadow of death, not real death, the shadow. And that's what I held on to. That's what keeps me going, knowing that my mom is alive and well and living in heaven and waiting for Jesus to return, for us to all go home and be with him. It's going to be an amazing time. Was there hard times before and after and during? Unbelievable hard times. Is there still hard times today? Absolutely. I can drive down the road sometimes and I feel like someone just slaps me in the face and my feelings are hurt and I'm overcome with this, for just a moment, this grief of, I miss my mom. But then I get like this image in my head of my mom sitting up in heaven just having a talk with Jesus and with her brother and her mom and her dad and her other brother and just having a great time. And I think, I wouldn't call her back if I could. There was nothing in this world that would make me want her back, because I know that she is healthy and she is whole and she is happy, and I'll see her again. So how did I get through my hard time, and how do I get through my hard time? The only way I can do it, and the only way I did it, is through Jesus Christ. If I had not had Jesus, I couldn't be making this video today. I couldn't be sitting here talking to you and telling you how the struggle was real. The struggle still is real and can be real. But that Jesus is the key. He is the answer. He is the only way through any hardship I have found. But when you lose someone like your very best friend, your mom, the one you take care of, the one you do all kinds of crazy stuff with, and you miss her every day, the only answer is Jesus Christ. Because I know, because my mom had a personal relationship with him, and that I have a personal relationship with him, I will see her and him again. I hope this video encouraged you to know that we can get through just about anything in life as long as we give it to Jesus. We can't do anything our own, but with Jesus, we can do all things. Have a blessed day.